What's up, everyone? This is Neena Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Thank you so much for being here. As you guys know, I go around the planet trying to find the best people on it so they can come on here to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. And I found these amazing humans, right? So this pair of people, Jonathan and Renee, they're a husband and wife team with 24 years of experience educating their children at home while running their own online handcrafting skincare business. Now, if you haven't heard that episode, Renee was on here before to talk to us about how she started that business and why that business was created. And we were talking, and as we were talking, she told me about a program that they created called Parent Their Passion. And this is where they show parents how to help their teens turn their interest and passion into long-term marketable skills. Now, you guys know I love having people on here that's going to transform the way we think. And so, Jonathan, Renee, thank you for being on Straight Talk. I really appreciate you guys. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Hi.
Hi, I'm really glad you're here. And John, it's nice to finally meet you, right? So I'm like, I already fell in love with Renee. So now it's your turn now. So I love everything you guys stand for and everything you do. And, one of the things that me and Renee were talking about, and when she was on the episode, was that you have a very large family and that she was able to stay home and homeschool the kids, which I thought was phenomenal. I think I would have went that route too, had I, thought about that when my kids were younger. But you also built a business while doing that, right? Which I was like, what, Renee, what is wrong with you? Are you superwoman? What's happening here? And then when she told me about your teen kids and the things that they had to do to develop, like their passions and what they want to do, I thought it was just a good fit for you to be here and talk to some of our parents that are listening. So why don't we start really quickly with just a little quick introduction of each of you, if you don't mind, and then we'll go from there. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, what we talked about, you and I, before was the fact that we did have a large family. Mm-hmm. And one thing I always remind people, they don't come all at once. And that's kind of how both businesses started. It wasn't really like this mapped out, big, orchestrated plan. It was more out of, wow, let's do things differently because we think we can do something better. With each thing, you've got a problem, you find a solution, and then you take it to the world, which is how we started with our skincare business. That was something that we had 7 kids at the time, and I had a problem with my skin. I finally got that one figured out and fixed with something that I can make out of my own kitchen. And then from that kind of decided, hey, this could be fun at a farmer's market thing. We're already homeschooling the kids. Maybe we throw this in as a homeschool project. And then from there, it just kind of kept developing into, we can sell this online. Let's do that. And then that's when Jonathan kind of came in as the husband, saying like, I don't know if we want all of our 9 kids to go off to college, do the exact same thing that he and I did as far as get our degrees, especially in today's day and age. Is it going to work out the same for them as it did for us? Some pros, cons, but it's a different world now. So
it is.
You want to take over and
I think that for us, every change that we made actually helped fuel the next change and in different areas of our life. So I think that's one thing that we notice with ourselves, but even with other people that we look up to. A lot of times you'll see that once they start making a change in one area, it probably gives you the confidence and the small little skills needed to make the change. Because obviously, if you're thinking a big change like starting a business, where we both come much more from an employee mindset in our early years, and then at some point in time, you come to the realization, wait a second, I don't have to be the one waiting by the phone for someone to discover me, which you find out as an adult. No one's really thinking about you.
Right.
Right.
So true.
And so, it translates also when you start realizing, we could actually move forward. And if you do run into difficulties, you start figuring out, and then you start thinking, well, maybe we could do the same thing in the area of education and career planning and so forth. And so I think that for me as a dad and so forth, we were going through these changes, both career for me, and then we were trying to launch a business to stay in an area that we wanted. So there's a lot of changes going on. And also our oldest at the time was only 12. So no teens yet, except that 12-year-old just about ready to enter the teen years with a lot of other kids behind him. And I realized, wait a second, we were doing, I think, a pretty decent job of preparing them for college, and maybe we're thinking about the accelerated college option. But at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, but I remember my college days. Really, the most fun I got out of it, the most interest was the non-college stuff. The actual classes were pretty mediocre, to be honest.
Right.
And I did learn some stuff, but really, when it all came down, yeah, whatever. So I realized, why are we going down the same path? I want something bolder, more uniquely suited to each of our children, and that's when one success, triggered an idea in another area where we could have success.
And also starting a business, especially when you have a lot of kids and we're all under the same roof together, you start to figure out, well, let's all be productive. Like, how can we pull our 12-year-old in to actually help us? And then once that started, we realized kids have a lot more potential and abilities than we give them credit for until you really need them to. And I figured that out when I had 4 kids, ages 4 and under, because I had a set of twins in there. And so with that many small bodies, and Jonathan's away at work, I've got to figure things out. How do I manage all of this? You realize you have to put some things back on the kids to do, and they can do it. And not only that, they're not complaining about it. They're actually rising to the occasion. So to fast forward that to a 12-year-old, there are a lot of skills that a 12-year-old can do. And we just kept building that up.
Yeah, I think I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
I'd say there's so many positive things that when a child is involved and productive, rather than diminishing them, it actually elevates them, where they get, in their own small way, they know they are doing something important, at least for the family at that level, and they get genuine positive feedback for it, rather than just trying to find the next entertaining thing to get involved in.
I mean, well, kids are creative too, right? So like, you're hitting that creativity as well. And that's what I was going to say too. Like, they must feel accomplished as well, right? Like when they're helping with something that means something, right? It's not a video game. It's not, something like that. It's something that means something. And I think I wish that more people would do that. I wish that more people would do that. And I really wish that schools would teach entrepreneurship. I'm like blown away how you don't learn that at all. So for you to take your 12-year-old who probably had amazing creative ideas, maybe even like a new way of looking at packaging, or a new way of looking at, scents, or, whatever, the job called for, is a very wonderful way to tap into that creativity in the brain. And then I'm assuming that that's what started to happen. Did you start to see them want to create their own things? Is that what started to drive that?
Well, I think what it is, it depends what age you're talking about, right? So if you have an older
12-year-old,
but you're talking more of a 12. So at a 12, the typical 12-year-olds can have a lot of interest. Life is awakening for them. They're no longer a small child, so they see all these possibilities, right? Every time they see a movie, they want to become whatever that is, or they have an older friend who's into something, they want to do that, and that's great. So they're full of life. What they need is like a focus, and because without a focus, they can't get enough critical mass and a skill to be good at something. It's kind of like you're sort of dabbling in piano, but you're never good enough to actually pull out a happy birthday tune. So when you go to a party, you're really not doing anything. You're just constantly taking lessons. You don't want to stay in that frustrated position. So as a parent, if you can figure out a way to tap in to what might be their normal inclination, but you help them elevate it to the next level, so they're bringing real value. So when it goes back to the question of the business, I think the reality is that we weren't trying to clone our kids to become lotion makers. That was not our interest. Our interest was giving them a chance, like the photographer's son, to do something for us with his skill. So that first one was, we were doing product shots that were not that great. And this is over a decade ago. So we didn't have a very good camera. We couldn't afford a photographer, etc. But an aunt gave him a hand-me-down camera, and he was just having fun playing around with a digital camera, showing his kids blowing up on the street and doing funny stuff. And that was all fine. So it's all very much of an inward focused hobby. And then we said, well, maybe you could do something helpful for us. Could you start learning how to take better product shots? It could only get better from what we were doing. Right. And he liked that idea. He liked that idea of helping us. And so he went to the camera shop, and we
We
gave
had
him
to-
some money to
yeah.
buy a couple of
We
lights,
needed, we knew we
lights.
needed some things like
Yeah.
a light box or lights that he can take. So
We-
that was okay. We were okay with investing in that. And then
Yeah, and then he got the camera guy gave him a couple of lessons on how to do product shots for free right there on the spot. And so
Wow.
he came home, and so that's how we got him involved in our business. We weren't forcing a skill set that didn't make sense to him.
Love
So
that.
we looked for an opportunity that matched his inclination.
Mm-hmm.
And then we said, this is great. Can you do more? Can you do better lighting? And then that opened the door to go down a whole different path. He doesn't work for us at all anymore.
so even with that, that was something we could use him for at age 12 to 14 or so. And then he kind of took off in his own interest. So went from photography to then drone videography and editing videos. And so now he has a full-time, he's self-employed, he's 24. And that's what he does is not just being hired as a drone photographer, but he's actually even managing a lot of other drone because he's been doing this for so long. So now he actually is hired by other companies to come as a contractor to come in and do some training of their drone operators. He's not out on the field all the time, although if he wants to, he can be. He's actually doing a lot more management and training of other people, but he's self-employed. So he gets to take the jobs that he wants. And then another son that was really, interested in the gaming, like a lot of kids are, and computers and so on. So the same thing where we took something that was an interest for him. And then what we always tell parents to do is, how can that person bring value? So how can your child bring value? And in his environment, it's the gaming environment, it's other kids. He learned how to do plugins for like Minecraft so he can make the gaming experience better. And he just kept developing that now. And he's 20, almost 21. He is a full-time web developer, and he helps a lot with different websites. I can call him up.
And he doesn't do gaming.
No, he does. Now it's like,
but it was
WordPress.
an opening for him to get into. And the way we roped him in the beginning to bring value to us right away, this was in addition to creating plugins, is that of course, being a small business, we're always having computer problems,
tech stuff,
right?
And,
of course.
Today,
and the help desk, when you ask him a question, the help desk gives you an answer. It's like, oh, great. So now how am I going to implement this?
Right.
Well, we could go to our son because he would research to death until he figured it out. He just had that.
He's really good at troubleshooting.
Yeah, and so his confidence goes up. But of course, from there you can imagine how you could pivot very quickly outside of the family. So we gave him an occasion. So when you look at that example, it's not like he's a lotion guy with our business. Nobody would even know that. But he is. There's always an aspect. And that's what I recommend to the parents. And when they're super young, when they're older, they have a lot more leeway. But look at your family, and if it's not your family, your immediate circle of close friends that would give an opportunity for your child to work in the background like that.
That's great. That's like you're really just like playing to their strengths, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And
that's a good way to say that.
Yeah, and that's like that's what a not just an entrepreneur, but even a really good leader, right? Like if somebody's listening to my podcast, which I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of leaders that listen to my podcast, and this is a very good lesson to learn, even with your employees, right? Like learning what their strengths are and then letting them play to that strength, because it will help your business. It will.
Absolutely.
Right. So I love that you did that. So is that what you're doing now with Parent Their Passion? Are you just showing parents like tools and tips on how to create, this place for their kids? Or walk me through that program.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that people in general can kind of get the big idea, like I want to become an astronaut, or I want to become a rock star, I want to become a veterinarian. So you have these big lofty goals, and they're typically, the big labels.
Yeah.
Right. But then there's no in between, right? So they wait till they get to college to figure this out, or after college even, but they don't have that in between. And so what we show parents is like really by focusing on your, I'm gonna do this to provoke a little bit, on your limitations as a family, it's actually going to give you the answer where you can get started, right? So what that means is that a lot of times you just need a very hyper-focused area for your child to bring value. So in the case of the photographer son, honestly, as a private fear, it's like, oh no, I'm going to have a son who's going to become a wedding photographer. It's so crowded. By the way, wedding photographers are amazing, but it's so well served that there's no way to break in and really make a living for an adult man. So, but we found something very, very specific. We had an issue with our product shot. So so even though we could have come up with the big label, which we did not. Oh, someday he'll manage teams of drone operators. Like, what? That's not even
we
a label.
never would have known that.
Right. But by answering an issue right away for us, and if it wasn't us, someone closer to our circle, then you start having the answer, right? So you need to find that beginning thing. And in fact, Neena, I'm looking at us talking, right? First thing that comes to my mind is, if you had do you still have children at home, by the way?
Do I have what?
Children at home still?
No, they're all adults.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So in your social circle of family and relatives, as they're watching you, the first thing that should come through a parent's mind is, like, let's say you have a precocious daughter who wants to become a writer. That's a pretty common thing. But, okay, it's going to burn out. They're not going to be able to cross over. Well, in your situation, I can already know that if somebody approaches, say, hey, I could do your show notes. Better yet, I could summarize the show notes. Better yet, I could turn this content of this conversation into social means that have content. So right there, somebody, if they were close to you, they could attempt to say, hey, Aunt Neena, I would like to give this an attempt.
Yeah.
You're a little doubtful. You're saying, yeah, I don't know if I want you doing my social media yet. But if you want to try the transcript, because it's just word for word, let's see how you do. So let's say they do a pretty good job. You're just like, that's not bad. And then they say, well, let me try a summary. And you're like, can you match my voice? So depending on the age, they give it a try. It's not too bad. You think, well, maybe I could give them some feedback, and you never know. And I can't pay you yet. Before you know it, that skill builds up. So it has nothing to do with your show, but your show is an excuse for that person to bring value and build that skill set up. And at which point they actually have real writing ability that they can pivot to something bigger. They already have basically a mini portfolio by tapping into their aunt. So that's how you have to see your environment as an opportunity to focus on something specific.
Yeah, and I mean that's how I think all of us grow too, right? Even as adults, right? I mean, Renee had a skin condition, and look what came out of that, right? So, let me ask you this: so, what do you do if you have a child or a niece or nephew, whatever, that you see doesn't really have a direction or doesn't really know how to tell you what they like? Is there something that we can do to prompt something out of them? Like, does that question make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So, well, it depends. I mean, sometimes people have too many interests, and you can have that in the same family. So one child is everything is a shiny new object.
Right.
And, that'll manifest itself one semester into ballet, then they give up on that, and then they're into baseball, et cetera, et cetera. Or you have the other child who's just more stuck on the couch and they can't find anything that motivates them. So you can have those in the same family. And, there's multiple reasons for that. But the short answer is when you have so many options available to you, you got to focus on the one where it's delivering value to other people. So that's going to narrow it down very quickly. So a kid could be interested in any number of things. But if you can latch on to the one where you're encouraging them to develop the one that's going to bring value quickly,
that they're still interested in,
right? So you're looking for the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
So if you have an athletic kid and you live in the mountains, and that if you lived in San Diego, they'd be just as much attracted to surfing as they would to downhill skiing. Well, then of course, and then I'm exaggerating the context, but you're not going to encourage them to go surfing because you're only going to go out there once a year. You're going to say, let's do downhill skiing. So a parent has a lot of ability to encourage and control that. So you want to go for the low-hanging fruit. That's going to help you decide to narrow it down.
And I think this is going to be good for parents to hear too, because lots of times we put our ideas of what we want on the child, right? Yeah. And so we don't see maybe their interest as important. Maybe it's not that important that they know how to draw really well, or something like that. Because as parents, we are like thinking you need to get A's and B's and we got to get you into college. And I think this is a good way for parents to realize that they should be actually maybe paying attention more to what it is the kid is interested in and what their strengths are, right? So that we can encourage it, because our brains always want those little wins, right? Mm-hmm. Even if it's just a small win, your brain wants the win. And if your brain gets that little win, it's like this rush, right? And then you want the next win and the next one. And that's a great way to encourage a child. And instead of, what's the word I'm looking for, or discourage them, right? Because a lot of kids get discouraged. I mean, they go to school, maybe they're not the best student, maybe they get picked on, or it could be a number of things, right? Especially teenagers. We know how that goes, right?
Yep.
So if we can give them small wins and we can really go look at what their strengths are and encourage that, I think that's pretty freaking amazing, actually, right? Because I mean, I love that you guys early on said maybe they don't want to go that college route. We should consider that, right? A lot of parents don't consider that. It is go to school, get your grades, go to college, right? And then what happens, right, John and Renee? Like when they don't go to college, what do they feel like? They're a failure. They're not good enough. What are they going to do now, right? So I love this direction that you guys are going on and helping parents understand that. So is this program that you have, it's a program, right? I am saying it right. It is a program, correct? Yeah. Okay. Tell me about the program structure. Is it a couple of weeks? Is it a one-off? Like how does this work?
Well, it starts with a free download you can get from our website. So even that, because there is a mentality, I think probably the hardest for us is to get parents to switch the mentality. So it's just like what you're saying is sometimes, and it was the same way for me growing up. You bring home your report card. If you get 3 A's and a C, guess what the focus is on? How can we improve that C? You're not looking at the A's. Well, what if instead you forget the C for a minute and just focus on those A's and what you can get out of that? And maybe you can really improve that. So the start is to go and get this download, because it's not just what you're good at in school. There's all kinds of different things to consider. And it's some of your interests. It's some of your opportunities. A lot of parents don't see the opportunities that they have. Self-employed parents especially have so many opportunities. And I know because obviously we are busy. Sometimes parents do not want to take the time of like, oh, I can't do this and help my kid develop something on the side. Whereas if you flip it around and say that kid's going to bring you so much value if you just spend a little bit of time developing that, letting them develop that. The world is so different today. They get so self-motivated when they start getting good at something. They know where they have to go to get the knowledge and to get better at it. So there's part of the whole process is you can go to get this free download. We talk through all the different mindset switches, some of the lists that you can make, some of the opportunities that you might not realize you have. So it's like a self-discovery. But then the next step is to get the kids on board, right? So the kids are just like, when's my next football sign up? I'm ready to go. I'm going to go play football like I've done for the past 3 years. The parents going, that's fine, but that means our nights and weekends are going to be taken up, or I'm going to have to take you out of town. And these days, the expense of sports is huge. So there's all of these other, so you got to think about like, can we make whatever interests that they're involved in actually be something that counts? It's going to matter in the long run. Because if this is just for entertainment purposes, and that's all you want, then our program wouldn't be for you. It's got to be something that's going to take the kid to the next level and really develop.
And they will find real joy. I think people want that for their kids. And the reality is that sometimes kids don't feel good about them, but you know what? They have no reason to feel good about themselves. You can talk about, we have intrinsic worth, but the reality is a teenager wants to feel like they're good at something. Everybody knows that, right? And they can do that. I think we underestimate how good they can become at something. That a teenager's level of obsession, and it can be a bad obsession. We understand that. I think it's partly built into our DNA. This is how kids learn. So you can hyper focus them on something and watch them take off, and they will feel good about themselves.
So then there's the part that we have that is to get the kids on board. We have a workshop. It's like a self-discovery workshop. So it's an hour long, although it could be done in a lot less than that. Short videos where we walk the kids through the different areas of interest, how to figure out what they're interested in. And then we say, go back to that list. We can expand on that. They're going to come up with things that parents were surprised by. And the next step would be like, okay, then we're going to look at your family culture and your family life. And we are, especially Jonathan, is so good at pulling those things out that parents don't even realize that they have going for them. So families are super unique and different. And that's where we go through a system of questions on how they spend their time, or how do other people describe your family? Because there's so much under your own roof that you don't realize you have. And then there's a whole section on the tools and resources that you have available. And it might just be you have Adobe because mom runs her business with it. Can the kids get in there and use it? Well, there's so many things that they can do nowadays to sell online, to do, so there's all these opportunities, especially again for the entrepreneurs that they already are paying for. And now you can pull your kid in and have them get trained on it. And then they can turn around and help you with your business. So we could take the kids through a series of what they love to do. You're not going to force the kid into the job that they don't like doing, but whatever opportunity you have in your business, or if you're not self-employed, it still works too. So that you're going through the step-by-step process. And then by the time you're done with that workshop, the next step is to figure out how can that child turn around and bring value to somebody else. Not like
that's awesome. That's great.
Like right away, this coming weekend, how can you now turn around and bring value? Because you're really good at this thing that other people are not as good at, and you're developing that. So now you're going to turn around and bring value to somebody else. And that's the first part of it. And then from there, we do coaching. We help parents out, looking for those opportunities. We have our kids blog. There's just opportunities to showcase, you build a portfolio. The other promise with this is if you are really driven, or your child is driven to go on to college, if you do this, you can still have a huge portfolio by the time they're 18.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, what about scholarships? Yeah. Is it because you were on the football team, or is it because the same amount of time you've developed this thing that you're so good at, and the college sees that and says, oh, we want you because we know you're successful, and it's going to make the college look good. So our older kids have gotten the jobs that they've wanted because of this whole, process of either blogging about it, showcasing it on Instagram, having lots of
you have
followers.
real choices. A lot of times people go to college because they feel they have no other choice. If you listen to the language people are saying, is most of the time they're saying, I have no other choice. And the reason is because if I don't do that, then what am I doing? Right? But if you actually had an advanced portfolio in whatever field of talent you're thinking of, at that point, you have real options. You could either go to a school if you feel that it's going to accelerate you, or you could decide, I'm already ready for go live. I'm ready to hit the world with my talent. So that's the thing, is that with this marketable talent that you develop in your kid, you're developing a really holistic approach to what it means to put your mark on the world. And kids can do this at a very young age.
Yeah. It's just better to not wait till you're 18.
Then you have no choices again.
That's the problem, is if parents get it and like, oh, that's great. Okay, sign me up. My kid's 18. We're like, it's going to take a while. It'd be a lot easier if they didn't have so much on the line. By then, they want to be living on their own. They need money. They're going to end up, as a barista.
They're going to have to work the double shifts at McDonald's or whatever it is. I mean, and you got to do what you got to do. Yeah. But the thing is that if you could actually make the same amount of money at a fast food restaurant, but actually building on this marketable talent that you've been developing for years, I mean,
true.
You don't lose all that momentum. I've seen this so much with young people. As soon as they graduate, they pretty much have to abandon everything they've been building on and then start from scratch.
Right. And it hurts, right? I mean, it hurts. You're just like, dang. And it really you start to then question your identity and what it is you want, because you don't know what you want, right? So let me ask you this question. What is a good range of age? Like, what's a good range for a parent to look at this program and say, okay, this is a perfect time for my kid?
When your child is starting to get a little ornery and hugs don't do it, and say, this is good, I want you to, then you're ready. And it's typically around the age of 12,
or
13,
12.
12 or 13. And I think what it is that it's that they can't articulate that, but they want to be their own person. They want to do something.
Yes.
And sometimes they're awkward about it. Sometimes they're sugar addicted.
They can be annoying about it, but this is where they want to be. In school, it's the same way. Kids want to be seen as good at something. So if they start that by 12, and then they start hitting the junior high years in high school, and then they're seen at, like our kids, our 5 adult kids, they're all out of the house. They're all known for what they do more than even their own name. Like, your son who is the guy that does all that videography. And one of our kids does our podcast or our just videos for Instagram reels and stuff. And he's very good at videography. And he's the kid that does that. He does podcast editing. Oh, the one that does that. And then my daughter, who is an amazing artist, and she does like lots of cartoon art. Oh, the daughter that does the art. So they get known for that. And that's a huge self-esteem boost for them too.
Right. Yeah, that's really awesome. Now, let me ask you guys this. Did anybody go to college?
Nope.
Nope?
Nobody
they're just doing their thing. Okay.
No, well, I asked them the same question. I said, go to college if it's going to accelerate you toward your goals.
Right.
And all of them said, I'm already where I would want to be if I were to have gone to college.
And they
They
saved
are
hundreds of
compared
thousands
to
of
their
dollars.
compared to their peers. They're already, they don't have to pay any school loans. None of them took loans.
Right.
They were
Right.
already
Right.
self-employed or working for somebody by the time they were 7, well, even younger than that. But they were able to launch out of the home by the time they were 17 or 18. And none
Yeah.
of them have come back to live with us. They're not asking. None of them have ever asked us for money. So all of, and having 9 kids, that was a concern. So we had to make sure this is going to work. And but it's been great because
They're
we don't
very
have
decisive. And I think also this is one of the big side benefits is as you are developing marketable talent, you learn all these sort of micro skills about how to communicate with someone,
Mm-hmm.
how to be clear, to show up on time, how to push through the night to deliver something. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
your outward focus. You have a sort of a servant mentality while you're being paid.
to.
And so when you get out into the world, you don't have to learn all of those skills. You're ready and hot to
So
go.
good.
And employers, because we've had people weave in and out of employment, self-employment.
They decide if they want to be self-employed or they want,
They're very
work for someone
self-conscious.
else.
Like even when they do go and work for someone, they'll go for a short term to basically get paid to learn those skills for free
And then
and
they
then
move
leave.
on. Yeah.
They're as opposed to how she and I grew up. You go through this college, and then you think, well, how come they're not? And you're waiting for the boss to discover you, and they tell, well, you got to get this next certificate. You're it's very inward focused. Whereas they have a very different mentality, which is what we wanted for them. And I will say
Right.
that it has been more successful than we expected. They don't have that anxiety or the imposter syndrome because they're like, well, of course this is going to work. We've done
And
this 1,000
they learn
times.
to pivot
Right.
too. If
Right.
they get tired
Right.
of a thing and they want to pivot, do something different, and they find a better opportunity, they usually use all the skills they've already learned, but they can take
That's
that somewhere else.
amazing. Is this something that let's say a grandparent can do with the kid too, or an uncle or an aunt or anything like that? Or do you highly more recommend it just for the parent and the kid, or can it be just an adult and a kid?
Well, anybody who's got a lot of influence in the
Okay.
teen's life, I
Yeah.
think would be really powerful. So it's more when you're at the beginning stages and there's a little more anxiety, obviously, to try something where you're putting yourself out there, even if it's in a small way. Even the example we're talking about, if you had a niece, who was an aspiring writer in her mind, and she's going to approach you, there's a little anxiety because
Right.
what am I asking? Am I going to cross the boundaries too much? And then mom and dad are a little worried. Well, don't do anything for her where you're going to fail. So you have to wrestle with this stuff. That's why it's nice to have an advocate. So yeah, if you have a grandfather or an uncle who's like really invested, you can have amazing chats. It's like, yes, I think you can do it. Maybe your scope is a little too big. Let's narrow it down. And then I think we can get a yes.
We're kind of empowering the parent or whoever to be almost like a coach to the child. But then whoever has that kind of guardianship authority of making decisions has to also be open to saying, well, this is a great opportunity. Like we've allowed our kids to go to a conference that might be 3 states away. We have one of our kids was really into bladesmithing. So he went as a 16-year-old, I think it was, or 17. He got to go to a conference. Well, some parents are like, no way am I sending my 17-year-old on a plane to go across the states. So it depends. So if whoever the decision maker and they have a good relationship with someone who can kind of coach your child along, then I think the more people involved that are going to encourage the kid, the better.
Yeah, I think so too. That's why I asked. I thought that's a great tool, especially for families that are close, right? So if you have like, a daughter and a mom or whatever that are close and they both can encourage it, I think that would be amazing. So I think what you guys are doing is absolutely phenomenal. And that's why I wanted you on Straight Talk, because I love when you can take like a new concept, a new idea or something and just have people really think about what they're thinking about, right? And we have to think about this next generation. We got to think about these kids, right? Because there's a lot of pressure out there with social media. There's a lot of pressure out there with these games. And so it's good that we can take now and look and like actually think about what are they strong at? Maybe we don't even know, right? Maybe as parents, we haven't been paying attention. So this is a really good thing to pay attention to. And I love that you give that first part of the resource, for the parent to take a look at. So I want to know how everybody can reach you guys, because I think this is going to be a very powerful thing for parents to do, or any guardian that's over a child. So why don't you go ahead and give us like your your website, where they can download everything, how they can follow you guys, all that great stuff, please.
Yeah. So to go straight to the website, parenttheirpassion.com. On that, everything that you need to know is right there. So if you scroll down, there's a place where you can enter your email address, and we'll send you the downloads that we have. That is it 4 pages long? 3?
I think it's about 4 pages.
It takes you through. So it is a lot. It's very beefy, and you can start with that. You can scroll down even further and see what our kids, how we did this with our kids, and what our kids are doing now, because you're going to see, wow, those kids are very unique and very different from each other. So we didn't kind of cookie cutter everybody. That's and awesome. Then there's also, if you want to get your kids involved and try to get them to actually do the workshop with us, then there is at the top right side is a little purchase down drop down, and you can choose the one that is the $27 workshop. That's what I would recommend starting with after you look at the downloads. And then take that with the kid, or just, and if you have more than one, that's fine with us. If you want to even have a few kids take it. I even had a mom say, oh, my kids are almost out of the house. Can I just take it for myself? I want to figure out what I'm going to do for the second half of my life. Yeah. Have everybody in the family take it. You never know.
You can learn
yeah. And then after that, then there's
also the newsletter. So right away, you'll get
that helps
a sequence
with
of emails, and you're getting the first one. We just love this example that we give of a kid, how they turn around what seems to be a very non-productive interest into something very valuable. And it's very powerful. So just a whole bunch of tips.
You have to, the whole mindset is making your kids not just consumers, where they're just doing their video games or just playing football or whatever only, but to turn them into producers. So now so instead of consumers, we're going to turn them into producers. So there's also a phone call. You could do a discovery call. So let's say you go through the entire program, through the workshop, and you're kind of like, I just need some help. I want to talk through some things. There's a discovery call that you can talk to us. It's 15 minutes, a free call, and we can kind of give you some ideas to take off with. If you want to, some parents are like, please, I wish I could think that way and have the time to do it. Could you just mentor my kid month by month? Yes, we can do that too. So there's also a whole coaching program that we can also
great. Do. That's fantastic. You guys are thebomb.com. I love you guys. That's fantastic. I really love it. I have a little personal question on the side, because I know I have a lot of entrepreneurs and podcasters that are listening. So on the videos for your kids that you're showing us, like the different aspects of what your kids are doing, are there contact info on there or no?
We have links to their websites. Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say, I know people were like, wait a minute, podcast editor? Hold on a second.
Actually,
I get those questions all the time. Yeah.
Contact us, because actually he's our podcast editor. He has 16. He has been doing podcast editing for how long? He's the one, a little guinea pig that we thought, we know it works at age 12. How about if it worked at age 9? So we kind of started one of them, and that would be him, a little early, and then decided, there is a point where you should just wait, because otherwise it's really a lot of work for the parents.
You don't want to be the parent. You don't want to be doing it. You want them to take ownership.
You're trying to put too much on them. So really 12 is a little bit better. But in his case, he has been doing some podcasts. He's been doing how many episodes?
I don't know.
Over 900 episodes in the past 5 years. Yeah. But he's not on there because we had room, like 4 spots. So we actually have.
But he's in there as an example. On the other page.
He did do. Okay, if you go straight to the parenttheirpassion.com, hopefully we'll keep that video there. He did an amazing job doing the video for us. I actually said
he's in it. He's
in it. So I actually paid him. And that's another part of this whole process.
Yes,
you can pay. You don't have to pay market value even. We always joke that sometimes we will pay with Doritos. I mean, you just decide what will get them to say yes, or what do you think is, in the big picture, what's going to help them move forward. He wanted to put himself on Fiverr. So he said, Mom, I just need more gigs. Like, okay, actually, I will hire you through your Fiverr account. And that way I can go back and leave a review. Awesome. So I got a really good deal. I did negotiate.
Got a really good deal.
But he did do the video of him. He's talking about it. He's doing like a little promotional video for us. And we had him do the script. We didn't tell him what to say.
Wow, that's great.
We just said, we wanted you to explain to the world how you were raised, like how you were raised to develop your talent. And you could pitch all your stuff if you want to. You can add bombs to the video, whatever. I mean, he loves to get into that. And he has a very cute, just watch to the very end. It's not that long. Such a cute ending. I thought, I never would have thought of that. So anyway, if you go, that's his video. And if you need a podcast editor, you can always reach out to us, because I don't know if it's actually, his website may or may not be on that. I don't remember.
Right.
But you can reach out to us and we'll let you know.
Yeah, that's what I was like, because I like, as soon as you guys said like digital and video and podcasting, I'm like, I can already hear my audience like, where? Who?
I know. And my 14-year-old is doing our Instagram reels for us too. So,
oh my gosh,
the younger one
so
is doing the reels.
Awesome. I love this. I love it. Anyway, guys, I really, really love this conversation. I love what you're doing. Keep up the amazing work. And thank you so much for coming on here and dropping all this knowledge with my audience. I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm really
Thank you,
glad.
Neena.
Thank you. And guys, thank you so much for listening, watching, all that. I was so stoked when I got my call today from my coach telling me that I'm at like 31 or 32,000 downloads for the month. So you guys are amazing and such a wonderful community. I really appreciate you. Make sure that you like, share, subscribe, all that great stuff. But I'm going to make sure to put Parent Their Passion and all of the links down below so that you can go on there and really start to play to your kids' strength and really help them develop the skills that they need for anything, whether they want to go to college or not, right? But the good thing is that you're going to pour into their lives. And that is super important, as you know, for me and for everybody else who's listening. I know that if you have kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, whatever, I'm sure that this touched you in the right place. So make sure that you like, share, and subscribe this episode, and make sure that you follow these guys because they are amazing. I just love them to pieces. They're good people. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Neena Perez, straight talk, no sugar added. Until next time.